I'm going down, down, down.
Welcome to Podnutz Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 203. I am your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live call-in show for computer repair techs. We answer your questions on running and operating your computer repair business. The call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. Let me introduce the co-host. We have Marvin Bee from MB Systems. Marvin, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good.
Also joining us, we have John Dubinsky from the MavenGroup.
Locked and loaded.
And last but not least, we have Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. How you doing, Paco?
Better than good, better than most. I'm going to say that it's going to be a lot easier to edit these shows when Marvin's gone.
You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. Let me find that.
Oh my God.
Oh, jeez.
All right. Well, since you are you're the soundboard extraordinaire, Marvin, why don't you go ahead and start us off this week and give us a tip or a story?
Well, all right. So my story this week will be about Junior.
Oh boy, not again.
Yes. So I'm attending a workshop on Thursday, so I'm not quite available, although I've got my laptop with me and I'm monitoring things while the workshop is going on. And I get a email from one of the junior techs at the one of my companies that, he's there full time to take care of desktop stuff, and he's complaining that he can't get into the Log Me In Central console. Okay. So I basically go to log in, boom, comes right up. So I also have an admin station at that customer's office. So I log into that station, logmein.com, boom, comes right up. So I send him an email back asking, I'm in, what's your actual issue? So he doesn't respond for like 2 to 3 hours.
Oh.
So after lunch, I get an email back and he basically, puts together a smart aleck response like, well, I'm sure it's working for you and for other people, but it's not, but how does that help me, or something to that effect? And I'm just like, whatever. So right. I, do a couple of things. We send a couple more emails back and forth, and I'm basically at the point where he's not even getting to the point where, when he logs in, it basically says that, some certificate's not working. So I tell him, well, I can't call, but I can remote in, we can chat. So I log into a station and do this. And so I start asking him, what other stuff has he done? And basically the only thing he's done is closed Google, cleaned out some settings, temp files, restarted. That's it. Hadn't tried another browser, hadn't done a malware. Hadn't done anything else. So I basically do a quick install of Mozilla, fire it up, comes right up, works.
Wow.
And
that was it. It was a browser issue.
It was a browser issue. But okay. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, the reason this is an issue for me is because here's a tech that thinks that he's, the cat's meow, the bee's knees, and wants to tell his employer that they don't need me because I overcharge and I'm using antique technology and I'm not up with the times and all of these things.
Wow.
And all I can sit there and say, dude, you can't even install a second browser to troubleshoot an issue. Don't come at me with, who's the better tech.
Wow. That's, some people, yes. Yeah, there you go. There it is. Yeah, a lot of times people don't understand too that I think in those situations. Now, when he said he reset Google Chrome and cleared the cache and all that kind of stuff, what he probably also didn't go in and clear Internet Explorer, which sometimes will have hooks into these other browsers.
He doesn't use Internet Explorer.
Right, but it's still on the system. So regardless of whether you use it, I've had issues that have come up where I've had to go in and reset Internet Explorer in order to get something else to work.
No, I understand. But I'm just saying.
You can also just downloaded the Log Me In client software too and bypassed everything.
Oh, come on, now, really?
I mean,
really? He didn't find that on Reddit, though.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh!
I mean, he is in the Reddit
options here. I'm just trying to be helpful.
Here's the thing, though. He never actually explained what the issue is in the beginning, and didn't really want to do any troubleshooting. That's my issue. Is if you can't be a tech unless you're willing to try a few things. Yeah, if you're going to research, that's fine, but not to say that Reddit's bad. I'm not saying that, but if that's your only resource and you've got a couple of guys that you talk to on Reddit, and what's the, not to offend anybody that uses Reddit, but I'm sorry, but half the people on Reddit aren't really techs.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of good guys on there. There are some techs on there, but it's something where, if you want to be professional in this business, be professional and go get training, go learn from real techs, and stop counting on Google to get you through, and then say that you're better than somebody else.
What, John? What do you always say? What's your famous line?
I'm not saying it again. You just stopped paying me last week. All I know for sure is I don't know everything.
There you go.
That's all I know.
And you've been doing this business for how long?
On my own since '95.
Okay. And that's, Marvin, you brought up a good point, because it's hard for people to be humble, apparently. And I would rather somebody tell me, I really don't know. Teach me. Let me know. Help me to understand where am I not looking properly? What things have I not done to resolve the issue? And that's where it becomes, that's frustrating. That's almost worse than dealing with residential customers. So.
Well, it is worse because he's supposed to be a professional.
It's exactly.
He's supposed to be making life easier. Can I go next? Because I'll just continue that with a 10-second topic.
Go ahead.
I jump in front of Paco and just say, why do internet technicians tell customers to reset the router and then the customers just do it, although you've told them not to do it in the past? Even though there's tape over the hole and everything, they peel the tape off. I mean, they really work hard to do what I've told them not to do.
And they find a little pin and they put the pin in there and they hold it for 30 seconds. They reset that bad boy. And they go, hey, my internet's down and I can't get to my server. I can't get to this. I can't get to that. Really?
So boom, there it is. All my reservations are gone. All my config is gone. But I'm going to pat myself on the back. That happened twice last week. Actually, 3 times. 2 routers and another piece of equipment. And I had a backup file. So all I had to do is restore the file and I was done.
Nice. I was going to ask that. Do you actually make backups of the config files? I
do, and I track that in my, in all my tracking in my logs on when I do them. So just as a reminder. Nice. I mean, otherwise, it takes 10 seconds to do the backup. I mean, I don't always do them, but boy, I tell you what, I'm going to start doing them more and more and more. I mean, just after this week. Otherwise, I would have had 3+ hours extra work probably.
Now, when you go in and make, so obviously if the configuration hasn't changed, there's really nothing new to back up. But when you go in and redo something in the configuration or switch something, are you going to put a policy in place where you start backing that up immediately?
And that's what I do now. So the 2 routers I use, the managed UTMs I do automatically back up on their own all the time.
Okay, nice.
So they dump a backup every week. But every time I make a change, like I add some new reservations or delete out something or add some new port forwarding or change the firewall, it's supposed to be in my cranium to do a backup, and I try to do that every time.
Okay, good.
I mean, at least if you had an older one, even if you missed the last 2 changes, you wouldn't have to start from scratch, maybe.
Right.
So,
yeah. Now, going back and taking a configuration for most of your businesses, how long does that normally take to set that up manually?
Well, that really depends on, is it just a tiny little network? I mean, sometimes you don't really need to have a backup. But if you've got something where you've got some VLAN set up and then you've got those spread over smart switches, you want to have a config backup of the router, you want to have a config backup on all your smart switches. So it kind of flows out depending on the complexity of the network. So
it could take hours. Depending on the situation.
Yeah, especially if it's been a while since you've knocked it around. If you got to pull it out of the back of the brain noggin, yeah.
Okay.
But for each device, though, I mean, what John was talking about with routers and stuff like that, most routers, it's really less than a minute. You know, if you're
to back it up,
to do the backup, yeah. If you're
talking
about
a full backup file, might be depending on the equipment, might be 18K or 20K.
Yeah, those aren't bad.
The backup is nothing, but I mean to reset up all the VLANs if they're complex, or I mean, yeah. So I mean, time value, just do the backup. Period.
Right. Exactly. And what do you do to the customer that keeps doing what you tell them not to do?
Well, luckily, this isn't a repetitive task at these customers, but I just, you give them the look like, really? Did we talk about this? Especially on the one I said, there was tape over it, right? Oh, yeah, I had to peel that back. I was like...
There's a reason for that.
That's where you get the tape that says warranty void if
that's right.
If removed.
There you go. Remove all this tape, instant $600, $500.
Advanced technical fee for removing this tab.
So, that's a good one. That's a good
if the reset didn't, well, it must be advanced, right? The old Matt rating line.
Well, I give him credit. The internet's down. There's panic going on. The doc's yelling, I'm sure, blah, blah, blah. She's just trying to get it up. So I'm not really picking on her, but, please don't do that again.
Please. Okay. Anyways, all right. So, yeah. Wow.
So if something like that happens, and that's outside, I imagine that's outside of your agreement, no? I mean, I get first time as a warning, but if it happens again, is that what you cover in there, or is that?
It would really depend on my pain level. If it was something simple, no. If I didn't have the config file, I probably wouldn't do it. I probably wouldn't charge for it. But I mean, if they massively screw it up, so I got to spend hours doing it somehow, or let's say the config file didn't work, or I got to spend more time than I should, you bet.
And it depends on when it happens. Yeah. If it happens on a Saturday morning, and you got to drive over there to do that, then yeah, that's billable.
Absolutely.
Nice. All right, Paco, what do you got for us this week?
Follow process, but here's a different spin on it. Had a buddy of mine. Me and him constantly argue on checking hardware before doing any type of repairs, software related, etc., virus, whatever. And his whole point is time is money, because he thinks that the additional 20 to 25 minutes of the hardware test is too long and the customer shouldn't have to pay for it. Well, what ended up happening this week was he ended up having some issue. It was slow, bogged it down. He thought he killed whatever bug that was there. Customer came back saying that it was still slow, whatever the case. So I asked him. He spent, and I'll back this up by saying he spent probably about a good 3-4 hours trying to fix it, and another 2-3 hours when the customer brought it back. So when I went to him and said, well, did you do a hardware check? No. Okay. Mind you, he pays for the software to do hardware checks. Okay. The computer has its own default hardware checks. Doesn't do any of that, right? So I said, do it. Well, I can't, that's too much time. And really? Okay. So I just did it for SAKs, went ahead, plugged it in, flagged as a bad smart test, bad blocks, bad hard drive. So said, all right, so 20 minutes. So yeah, it took 20 minutes extra now, but if you would have done this in the beginning, you probably would have saved yourself at least a good 5 hours that you spent on this thing. Right. And you're charging at a flat rate. You're not charging hourly. So that's your lesson for there. So my thing is, 1, build a process, and 2, follow your process. Not that high.
Now, let me ask this, Paco, and I already know the answer, but I'm going to anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have all your processes in place, like a checklist that you can check off when you're doing these things, or do you have it right here in your cranium?
Have your process down, and then have your process down and write it down. Yes.
Okay. You didn't answer my question, though.
I know I didn't, but we're going to go move along.
No,
don't do what Donnie don't does. So
the only reason is I asked Paco the other day, I said, hey, maybe we should collaborate on making a process list, because I find myself sometimes where I'm jumping around. I know the processes are in my head, but sometimes I'll jump one step ahead, and then I've got to go back and remember that I didn't do this one step. And so I really want to have, well, that's true. I want to have something. John, do you have,
don't ask. Just keep going.
Oh, pick me.
Oh,
pick me.
The teacher's pet.
I have checklist. I have checklists.
Look at that. Now, is that the same for, obviously you're doing different things in businesses than you are for residentials. Is that pretty much, would you do the same thing if you were doing residential side?
My checklist?
Yes.
I don't have residential.
I know you don't, but I'm saying, could you use it for residential?
Well, you could use, yes, but here's the thing that I do. The checklist that I'm holding up is a new computer checklist, and it's basically modified for each client. And then I do have a generic one that I use for just straight computer builds. Now, for every other process, for my computer cleanup and malware removal, there's a separate checklist for that. Now, that is more generic, so you can use that for anybody.
Is that the same checklist since 97?
No, I modified it in 98.
Got it.
That's cool. All right. Very good. Let's see. What have I had this week? I've had too many computers, and I'm tired of computers and working on them. But anyways,
wait, what?
Yeah, I had a computer come in that basically, well, this person still needs a what do you call those pads on the laptop?
Mouse pad.
Yeah.
Touchpad.
Keep it clean.
Thank you. Anyways, so this particular model, it's an Acer model, and it's one of these Ultrabooks, and they've had it in before, and I was going to order the touchpad itself to replace it. Unfortunately, on this particular model, there are two brackets underneath that are basically welded to the upper part of the chassis. There's no screws to take them. You can't take them out and pop this thing out. There is a way to get it out if you, I think you have to break the cable and you can kind of maneuver it and slide it. And so anyways, long story short is the only way to really repair this is you have to buy a whole upper end. Not a big deal. I've done it before. You basically have to take everything out of the laptop, put everything new in the upper, and then put the bottom of the case on, and you're good to go on this laptop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, but the problem I'm having is with this particular model, I'm having a problem finding that touchpad or that whole upper chassis.
The face palm rest?
Yeah, to get the whole thing. So you can find them sometimes for people that have like refurbed some of these older laptops, taking them apart themselves or selling the parts, but they're not very easy to come by. So again, I don't understand why companies out there will not make these products to be replaceable. Touchpads go bad. Now, okay, you can take the ribbon cable out and re-put a new ribbon cable in on one portion of it, but the other one is actually attached. So why wouldn't you build something that you can go in and actually replace instead of spending another $800 to $1,000 for this particular type of laptop? I just don't get it. So anyway,
so what did you do with that repair? Did you tell them you didn't have the part, or?
Yeah, this is like the second time because this customer lives in New Jersey and she comes into town every once in a while, and I'll see her and do some things on her computer. Most of the stuff I do for her is remote, and basically she, wants this palm or this touchpad replaced because she's tired of hooking up another mouse to it and stuff like that. So it's a nice unit.
Gotcha. So she's just in love with the unit. I was going to say,
yes.
Have you? Okay, got it. Because I was going to say, when I usually have those come in and I can't find the part, I'll say, look, and then I'll call the support, see how much it's going to cost for them to do it, like, Dell, HP, whatever, if somebody were to send it into them. So I'd get that quote and tell them, look, I can't find the part. It's probably going to be very hard for another computer shop in the town to find this part as well. I called, OEM, and they said it's going to cost this much to repair. You can also have the option of, we can probably get you into a nice refurbished unit, probably close for the same price. Or if you want to get something similar to the same price new, and we'll just transfer your data over for this fee. And then,
yeah, in most of the time, that's an easy sell when you're talking $500 or less.
Right.
When you go over $500, you're kind of like,
it is a bit harder.
So because it's a Core i5, I think it's got 8 gigs of RAM. It runs great.
Right.
There's no issues with it. It's just that particular one little item. So, but that is a good idea. I could call the OEM and find out if I can actually get that part. Now, she actually replaced, because she's, like I said, in New Jersey, she replaced the battery herself. I basically sent her a video. Now, she's already shipped her laptop back and forth a couple times, and I've worked on it when she wasn't here. But in this particular case, she wasn't going to be here for a while. Her battery was dying, and she did a replacement on the battery. And shortly thereafter, that's when the palm or the touchpad started going bad. But she thought she did something. I'm like, no, everything's working fine. It would either work or it wouldn't work. This just happens to be one of those things, because I've checked the cable and everything to make sure that everything's tight. It's just the touch sensitivity is just failing on this thing. So
gotcha.
But yes, OEMs, please make your parts replaceable. Things do fail. Especially when we're talking about, I understand the cheaper unit, but even a cheaper unit, you could get the touchpad separately and pay 30, 40 bucks for it and throw that thing in there, no problem. But why on a more expensive unit you can't?
Don't want them to buy another expensive unit?
I guess. Shame on you.
It's like an Acer TravelMate, or is it something?
It's not the TravelMate. I can't remember exactly which model it is, but it's
the Aspire.
Aspire. There you go. Thank you. It's an Acer Aspire, but it's like a really small Ultrabook. I want to say it's
S7,
11-inch screen or something like that. It's not the S7.
Okay, because I had one of those come in, similar situation. I got him into a Lenovo ThinkPad for 30 Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, and I think 1 terabyte drive. So essentially, more robust, more memory, bigger hard drive. And it was almost the same repair. It was going to cost the same to put them in that versus doing the repairs of the motherboard that I could find, which was already a refurb or used motherboard anyway. So I couldn't find any new ones that were available. So I said, look, we could take this option or we can do this option. And this is going to be a little bit more robust in my opinion. He was like, oh, let's just do the business class. I was like, all right, cool.
And I think a lot of times when you're talking about a motherboard failure, that's a little easier to sell. Because again, that's the main part of the machine. You have,
that's true.
Really 3 parts, right? You have your main part is your motherboard, hard drive, and screen. Those are the 3 main parts, in my opinion. Those are the expensive fixes. Everything outside of that, little bits and pieces here and there, should just be replaceable. But well, good.
It's probably the difference between like a Dell Latitude and a Dell Inspiron. Same. Between like an Aspire and a TravelMate.
Okay, so it could be. It could be.
Not that's a good excuse for the manufacturer to
hose you.
Thank you.
He's like looking for word.
What would Jeff allow me to say here?
Take off, you hoser.
That's for our Canadian friends.
Hey.
Anyways, so but yeah, I've just been working on a couple other things, kind of using some of the automation tools for virus removals. And I tend to try different things. So even when I do have a process, sometimes I like to play a little bit. And so I'll go in there and I'll try this tool or try that tool and see what the differences are running these one at a time, and to see, okay, what's going to be the best route to be able to take care of this virus, malware removal, cleanup, all that kind of stuff. So anyway. All right, so let's take a quick break, and then we'll go ahead and we'll slide into our new topic. I just want to bring up a subject that I probably have not talked about this particular website enough. And running into as many texts as I do, and seeing your crappy websites, yes, I said crappy websites. Not you, Marvin. We're not talking about you. Yours is beautiful.
I'm sorry. I wasn't even listening.
But what I wanted to point you guys to is, if you have not checked it out yet, is I want you to check out Tech Site Builder. And that's from Matthew Rodella, who does the Computer Business Podcast over on the YFNCG network. And he has made a website that's basically plug and play. If you don't want to play around with a website, if you don't want to maintain it, if you don't want to update it, everything is in place. Not only is everything in place, there's pictures there. There's all kinds of things that you can basically have a working website up in about 1 hour's time. And then you can tweak it over time as you go. Yes, you pay a monthly fee for this, but you're going to pay a monthly fee for hosting. And those of you that are doing these free websites, shame on you. But hey, not here to judge. I'm just saying. I would check out Tech Site Builder. Go over there, techsitebuilder.com. Check it out. Try to put a website together. You see the different things that it can do. Ask and see some of the different people that are actually using the website. Now, I'll granted, mine could use some work. I could use some more details, but I can do it easily, and that's what I like about it. So you can go over to technutpc.com and check that out. That is a Tech Site Builder website. And as soon as I get the time and feel like it, I'm going to add some more things in there. But I will say this is I still am of the opinion when talking about websites that your front page and everything above the fold, which means that you don't have to scroll to see the main information, location, phone number, name of the business, a nice logo, hopefully. And these things are the most important things that your customer needs to see. Contact form, okay? If you want people to contact you that way, you can do those things. I look at a website as a way to have people be able to call me so they can talk to me person to person, and I can get a feel for them. They can get a feel for me and understand if we can do business together or not. You can learn a lot from a couple-minute conversation, phone call conversation. So anyways, go over and check out Tech Site Builder. He's doing a phenomenal job, and he's adding things all the time and making it better. And that's what I love about what he does. You're not stuck with this one template that's going to be there for the rest of your life. He's making it better, working on the SEO in the background, getting all that stuff done, teaching you with videos how to do it. It's very easy to do. So check it out over at techsitebuilder.com.
And then one thing to add just on that is for those that are like Jeff, that don't have the time to work on their site, Tech Site Builder does offer a service where he will do it for you. So
yes,
definitely check that out. And if you don't want him to create your site from scratch, he does other things like blog posts, X amount of blog posts for, whatever set service. He can update specific sections such as your services as well. So he does have that available if, like myself, don't have time to modify the websites because I'd rather work on my business than in my business. So
there you go. All right. Thank you for that. Yeah, I forgot about the concierge service. That is awesome. I need to get him on that. I'm gonna get him to do mine. All right. So we're going into a controversial topic.
Oh man.
And what kind of brought this up? Let's talk about what the topic is. The topic is manual versus automation. Now, there's many different ways that we could go with the manual versus automation. But what I have seen from people is I've seen certain people in groups in different things, and what they'll talk about is they don't want to automate their processes because they want to manually go in, and whether it's manually doing a virus removal or manually inputting data into whatever for finances, all that kind of stuff. Instead of using these other products where the product can help make you more expedient, they want to basically take this and we're going to have everybody learn manually. And we got to do this manually. The problem is the way we talk in this industry sometimes is very, very false. In other words, we say one thing, we say manual or automation, and yet it doesn't really mean manual or automation. And what I mean by that is there are people that will basically take a manual process and they will go in and they will use automated software one at a time to fix the problem. And so to me, this is not a manual process. This is still an automated process. It's just a different sort. So I want to have a discussion today on the pros and cons of both ways of doing what we do, whether it's being manually doing things, certain things, or automating certain things to make our lives better. There's just a lot of misnomers out there, and I want to try to address those today so that we can get everybody on the same page and everybody goes, okay, I understand when people say manual process, what they're actually saying, or if they say automated process, what they're actually trying to say. So who wants to brave this topic and start off? Go ahead, John.
In my opinion, I think there's no alternative, or I think the best way to do it is to automate as much as possible, as long as you can have the information on the back end as to what happened with that automation. Meaning, if I run a script on a server, I need to know if that script successfully ran, or if I had any problems, or maybe perhaps it caused another problem. So you need to have some results-based automation, in my opinion. A great example of that, I think we've talked in the past, or at least in my opinion, a lot of guys run combo fix. Combo fix to me is a Hail Mary, meaning it's the last thing that I would run on a PC before maybe I do a NNP, a nuke and pave. But you don't really get a whole lot of feedback from combo fix. There are some log files you can go look at, I believe, and stuff like that. But I mean, if you run into trouble, you got to really search and dig on what it broke, or perhaps what it fixed and then left you broken, or something like that. So my idea is to automate everything. I want everything automated. My backups. If I can automate repairs, which I do a lot through scripting, like through LogMeIn, I can do their processes called one-to-many, so I can reset the print spooler on a PC by clicking a couple buttons. So I don't have to log into the PC, go run a program, manually clean out the spooler file. I have all that scripted. But I get a report back in LogMeIn that says, yes, this was successful, or no, it wasn't, with an error code. So I can track it down if it didn't work. So that's my answer to that. Now, if we're talking about malware, I'm old school. I use automated programs, but I do not use a program like D7 or all that to script them all together at this time. I played with D7, I played with RepairTech and all that. Not on board with those yet. Not that they're not awesome. It's just my process that I have has worked for me.
Very good. That's a great explanation. All right, who's next?
Marvin, time is money. That's why I guess in the short thing to wrap it up is time is money, right? Automate it. Automate it so you can be doing something else.
Absolutely. Marvin?
Go, Paco, go.
Or Paco, either one. Nobody wants to touch it. Come on, it's not that hard.
No, it's because I actually had this conversation with a buddy of mine as well. And I'm trying, and I could see his way of thinking, and I can also see why he wouldn't think the way I do. So I can see why he's wrong. But anyway, so his whole point on, so I'll start with me. I believe you should automate everything you got. I mean, I think that it's a disservice to you to take more time to do something when you can do something in a matter of a click of a button, in a matter of getting something done in half the time, because that's time that you're taking away from getting paid, doing other stuff, etc. Now, the argument that was given to me was, okay, in this case, we're going to talk about maintaining customers. So doing recurring revenue, you're giving them some type of contract that you're going to do X this, you're going to do this for a set amount of money per month, per every 6 months, whatever. The argument that was given to me was, as you're doing these type of services, when they're automated, it's out of mind, out of sight. So when the customer doesn't see you doing anything, there's a good chance that you won't renew for the next year. So that's why there has to be manual process involved in this whole thing. So scheduling calls to log into their machine to do the 2 cleanups versus having it set up in an RMM system. Going into scheduling some type of conversations with them every so often, per month, per X amount of months, etc. My reply to him on that is, yeah, the talks are great, but that's why you have reporting. That's why you have to have some type of proof that you're doing said work, which can be automated. So that's kind of the whole back and forth on that is concerned. But I personally think you should automate whatever it is. And if you're advertising that you're offering said services, whether you're automating or not, like John said, as long as you can prove that you are doing it, then there's no, you shouldn't feel bad automating your stuff, because a manual approach will just give that more feely good with your customer, because you're achieving the same result. It's just all on you on how you go about it.
You see, for me, I think if you pull the the customer off the program, whatever tool you're using, whether manual, automated, whatever. And let's say you're working in the background, they don't ever see you. The stuff's just working. All I do is pull them off, and they're usually back in about a month. Right. They go, oh, this is horrible. I didn't realize what was going on. So I don't really worry about those customers so much. A lot of my customers will call me for little things. And so I get a chance to communicate with them throughout the year. But I am front of mind when my automated processes are running, and they know it. If they have any little issues, the good ones, they're gonna call and let me know, and so I can communicate with them, and that's all we really need. So
are we talking about two different things, really? We're talking about customer relationship a little bit, and then we're talking about automating the tasks, the mundane tasks in our business. So as part of the customer relationship, if you have good automated tasks, if like with my monitoring, if the internet goes down, I'm usually, I get notified if a server goes off in 5 minutes, I'm calling them. And they're usually like, oh, we haven't even called Comcast yet, or we haven't even, so that's how you provide the value, that you're on top of it. Or, hey, you're doing some sort of system monitoring and you notice you're getting poked a lot, that the services are spiking. So you log in and, hey, I noticed your computer's been acting slow. And they say, yeah, hey, you're right. That's cool. Well, give me a couple minutes, I'll check things out. Or if you've got managed antivirus of some sort, you're stepping in front of the problems, or you're reacting as quick as they're noticing the problem. Right. I mean, you can't just install it and just let it run. If that's the way it worked, everybody would be an MSP, right?
That's true. Well, a lot of people do, and I guess that's part of talking about this manual versus automation. A lot of people do feel that you can install said product and it just runs in the background, and hey, we're good to go. As long as I don't get any alerts or anything, we're good. But they'll maybe never go in and manually check that stuff and look at it and see what's going on. Like you said, something's probing the network. You've got a managed switch, all these routers, smart routers and stuff like that. You've got to look at that stuff. And I think a lot of people,
the way I find it, if I inherit somebody that was quote unquote an MSP, is everything's installed, but they're not managing.
Yeah,
right.
They're not managing the customer relationship. They're not managing the service. They're not managing the IT. So, yeah, the logs are full of everything that they should be managing, but they're just simply not doing it.
Right.
So automated to a point, I guess.
Yeah, you still have to. I believe there is a little bit of manual process in that. All right, I want to hear what Marvin has to say because he's sitting there quiet.
I was just remembering the Ronco commercial, "Set it and forget it." That we have so customarily tried to become as an industry. So I would concur with my other two guest panelists that automate as much as you can. However, when I had my techs, I was of the opinion that they would never do an automated process unless they could explain and do everything behind that process. I wanted them to understand, okay, what is this program doing? Because if the program doesn't work, what good is it if the tech can't go in afterwards and explain that or fix it manually or do that stuff? So I'm all for automation. However, there's got to be a manual component to it, meaning that if you just simply run a script and the script works, okay, great. But what if the script doesn't work? Can you go in and find out why? Can you go in and fix the script? If the script is broken, that's one thing. But if the script is working and the problem isn't fixed and you've got to go in and manually do it anyway, you've got to be able to do those types of things. I do use all the automation, well, not all, but I mean, I've used D7. I've used the all-in-one repair tool. I'm going to reluctantly admit that I've used Combo Fix. But that has basically, that has been in a, WTH scenario. Right. It is the last, as Dubinsky would say, the Hail Mary. If nothing else works, I use it. I do tons of automation, guys. You know me. I do the disk duplication, the disk sanitizers. I have checklist out the yin yang. But a Datto, for instance, is basically an automated DR product that a lot of people don't like because they think that you have to manually mount an image to prove that it works. Now, I've gone in and done a Datto restore to make sure that, yeah, okay, it's not that I'm just going to trust them, but I know it works because I've tested it myself. I can pull it out and use it somewhere else. So with automation, you have to understand the mechanics behind your automation. That's pretty much my argument there.
No, that's good. And I agree with what everybody has said here. Automation, let me start with there are misnomers. And a lot of times people will say things like, I don't automate my virus removal process. And yet they will throw things on there like combo fix, all-in-one repair, malware bytes, all these different types of tools that basically run automated. Now, if your scenario is I do everything manually by installing a piece of software and hitting scan, then that is not really a manual process. And matter of fact, there's probably not very many people that can actually go in and remove viruses manually. Matter of fact, I know only handfuls of people that can do that at this point. Is that a need? Maybe, maybe not. But if you understand things like, and let's go back to what we were talking about, understanding the background. If you understand the Windows operating system, and obviously that's the only thing getting infected, right? Yeah, there is malware on iOS, and there is malware on. There could be maybe on Linux. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. But we're supporting the Windows operating system, and Windows. Basically, the registry and a lot of the background, a lot of the foundation of Windows has always been pretty much the same since Windows 98, at least Windows 98, maybe even Windows 95. And so if you look at the vectors for where a virus can actually reside, it can't just go wherever it wants to go. It has to go to a spot, whether a registry key or somewhere else, that it can actually run from. And so if you don't have that environment of whatever folder system it's in or whatever registry key where it can run automatically, it could sit on that hard drive forever and do nothing. So the reality is, if you're going to say that you're going to manually remove viruses, well, you better be going in and checking the over 200 registry keys that get infected of where things run from. Now, most people don't do that. There's scripts out there that do that. You can take, Ken Dwight, the virus doctor. He can teach a class on that, enlighten you about the background of the operating system, and get a better understanding of it. And I think everybody should continue their education as far as learning how the operating system works. One of the things I've always said, I love Windows because you can do one process 10 different ways. You do it however you want. But there's usually at least 10 different ways that you can go in, click a switch here, move this over here, make it work the way you want. So when we're talking about manual versus automated, we're really talking about what I would say automating one at a time and going in and running a program. Okay, that didn't fix the problem. Here's what it came up with. I mean, how many people actually go in and recheck after a malware scan has gotten rid of registry keys and different variants of viruses that were sitting in certain spots in the hard drive? People aren't manually, you could go to the registry and look that stuff up, but most people probably don't. So therefore, I would call that a automated one-by-one process. I know I do a lot of air quotes nowadays because I just think it's fun.
I would suggest that we're using that word automation too simplistically here. In my mind, something is automated. Let's give an example. So I'm monitoring a server and I have a disk space threshold. Let's say if the disk space threshold on this server falls below 10% free space on a particular drive, My system, let's say, then automatically kicks in and runs a disk cleanup and some other utilities or whatever to try to free up that space. I would get notified that happened, and then it would try to automatically resolve that problem for me. So I don't have to do anything. That's automated, right. Meaning your managed antivirus finds a virus, removes it, runs a full system scan to try to make sure that nothing else is going on, and then reports back to you what happened. So there is nothing really for you to do except feel confident that you fixed the problem. What this will also do, like your disk space issue, could be a heads up that something else is going on. Maybe there's some sort of disk replication going on through a virus or malware, or data replication, excuse me, or maybe a user on the network has decided to copy their entire movie library to the server for some God knows reason. And and you forgot to set up a quota on their storage, and so they're sucking up all the space. The automation aspect should be a full circle, that you have it all automated so that you don't have to do anything except read the report. And then you can say, and then you close the customer relationship loop by saying, yes, hey, guess what? We had this problem and you didn't even know about it, and we took care of it, and you're welcome. That's why you pay me.
There you go.
Obviously in a much more delicate manner or professional manner than that. But to me, that's what automation means, that I don't have to do it.
Right.
I agree. Can you automatically update the firmware and some of the gear so you don't have to do it? Right. Are your backups happening like we just talked about, like my managed routers? Those backups happen automatically. I just get an email notified that it happened. It's automated.
And here's the other thing too. So you get a notification. Let's go back to your disk space. If you look at the disk space and it's telling you, your automated software is telling you that it's almost full or it's hitting this threshold, the reality is you need to be able to go into the computer, right, and go to disk management and figure out, hey, is this thing actually full, or is it just is it a false positive? And I think that's what everybody's kind of saying too here, is you have to know, okay, what is it doing when it's cleaning a temp file, or it's cleaning the cache for whatever particular program or browser.
See, I would even take it even further to say that I would like an automated response or a self-healing response to say, we were at 10 gigabytes, whatever I have happen, clean manager or whatever to clean up space and delete temp files. All of a sudden I'm back to 60 gigs free disk space. Maybe I'd poke around to see why the heck did I have that much temporary stuff on there. But if the automated self-healing process doesn't fix it, then I probably know that somebody's copying some data on there, and I forgot to set a quota for that user, or heads up, maybe there's something going on with some malware, or something like that. Right. But I would like to see the report that, hey, we have a problem here. The self-healing or whatever you have in place to fix that automatically has run. Now we're here. And then I can look at this and say, oh, I got 100 free gigs now. I don't need to worry about it. So I can just move on.
It's good.
And put out a different fire.
Right, exactly. Well, and the other thing about the self-healing process of that is that maybe it's not something you need to deal with at that moment because, hey, it's fixed the problem. It's just the follow-up, like you said, customer relations. Hey, here's what we did for you. And maybe during that conversation, somebody sends you an email back or something that says, hey, we noticed this problem. And it kind of gives you a heads up on what's actually going on in the system.
Absolutely.
All right. So, but anyways, I just wanted to clarify that. And now, Paco, let me ask you, when you do a virus removal, let's say, do you use an automated process, or do you do a manual process, or do you do a hybrid of a little bit of both?
I do an automated process to a point. So for example, I use Tekwaru.
Okay.
And I use that for my malware removal. Now, I don't use their presets. I created a custom queue of apps that I used to normally run manually. Okay. So I would, CCleaner, clean up everything that's in the background so I can lower my scan times, run JRT for the junkware, and so forth and so on. So I've ran these programs manually before, and what I've done is the way that Tekwaru has their queue set up, I've gone ahead and put those in place, along with testing out some of their own tools, like for example, the I forgot what they call it, the registry cleaner, something. It's a specific tool that's only on TechWaru that was created by both Ken Dwight and the repair tech guys over there in collaboration. So I would run those tools that are only in there specifically to see how the results are. Once I've tested that they're good to go, then yes, I will add it to the queue and automate my virus removals. Now, that's the only part that I have automated. Everything else I don't have automated, such as, like John said, the client communications. Hey, this is what we found out. This is where we're at. Because there's 2 scans at this point. There's a scan to see if it's even infected, 2 to clean it up. So that's kind of what I give them, and it's all integrated into my CRM system, so I don't have to manually pull that report to email it out to them.
Have they done their update yet, Paco? To that suite? Is that done?
Yes and no. They're in beta, but it's publicly released beta, and they're going to retire version 1 in, I think, at the end of this month.
Cool.
And that's the other thing too. If you're used to, and Paco, you put it together exactly right, because what you said was there's programs that you used. Now you're using this tool that pulls all those same programs into one space.
Correct.
And you can basically set it up the same way that you used to do it manually. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, once all that stuff's in there, you press the button and boom, it goes through. And then obviously, this is just my opinion, there's always a bit of follow-up.
Right.
I'm looking at a couple things, whether I'm looking at using things like auto runs, where I can look and see if anything is popping up. Now, there are Windows files that turn on and off all the time, so that's normal. You have to kind of know what you're looking at. But after you've looked at it for a while, you kind of know what's good and what's bad. If you see something weird popping up, you can kind of go in and look and see exactly where that's at and see what's going on. So, but yeah, using the same programs you already used and putting them together in one package where now you don't have to sit there and run one program after another.
And then we can also put a spin on it too, right? On automation. I used to back up. So when I would ever do nuke and paves, when I was working for the big brands company that I was working for that did on-site visits, and I was on an hourly crunch, in order to do nuke and paves, we had to back up the data. Now, manually backing up data, 1 is a pain, but 2 is you never know if you're grabbing everything. Because if you don't have a process, if you don't have something written down, you may miss something, like Steam games, there was Steam game saves, or the Outlook PST or AST files, so forth and so on. Now, when I got introduced to Fab's Auto Backup, that did everything that I needed it to do, and I didn't. And now I cut out my time from trying to look at these particular folders, but this picked up all the common places people save stuff, and it backed it up, and I can restore it back to the same spot. That was something where I was doing it all manually. I knew the folders that I would normally check. Now I had a system that could get everything done, plus go through and look at some other stuff in case there's other things saved in, like, let's say the root file, or I'm sorry, in the root directory of the C drive. Went ahead and helps me out in that space too. It helps free up my time, and I'm not digging around trying to find things that on common areas that system already has in place automatically.
Right now, so let's talk about that, because Fabs is a excellent product that I use all the time, and Fabs will back everything up like you said. Now, one of the things I do is, number one, usually when I'm talking to the customer, I check with them to make sure that they wouldn't save anything, let's just say, on the root folder of the C drive,
right,
which is going to be their main hard drive. You know, because sometimes people they'll make a little backup folder of sorts or something of files that maybe they're not using right now, and they'll throw it on the C drive. And so I will manually go in, and a lot of times, and just look through there real quick to see if there's anything that might get missed before I wipe that drive out.
Right.
So I guess in a sense, that's a partially automated process with a little manual look-see to see what's going on.
No, and it makes sense, because there are things like, and I can't think of any programs off the top of my head, but save their data files in the program files folder, or the program x86 folder under their own programs directory.
Hopefully there's nothing, and I will tell you things like QuickBooks and stuff like that, if it is saved in the program files folder, Fabs does actually grab that information most of the time for your mainstream products.
They actually save that
stuff
folder for QuickBooks, but I get what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Quicken doesn't. So my Quicken file gets backed up by Fabs because that's just where it's at.
Okay, because you said QuickBooks, so just saying.
Yep. I know I said QuickBooks, but I was just saying for an example.
Got it.
Fight.
Just making sure. I'm just saying, it's
in the public folder. Don't make me come to Chicago.
Let's get ready.
And this you'll get more, folks. November 6th. As okay.
So, Marvin, anything to add to this conversation other than what you've already said at this point? Anything we've talked about?
Well, I'm going to digress and say that this discussion can lend to another issue that I have with technicians that are in the forums and just give away trade secrets to the public.
Okay.
So that when we have automated our processes after years of honing our craft, and techs will just go out and just spill out to customers, well, all they're doing is this, and you only need to pay this to do it. So that they're basically discounting what we're doing, claiming that, well, they're just using a program D7, and that's not, they're not really doing anything,
right?
Or fabs or whatever, to the point where we now have customers questioning our professionalism in our industry. And to the customer, they're like, well, all you're doing is using tools, so you're not really doing anything. That's one of the reasons why I love to have my techs always understand, the reasoning, the mechanics behind the automation, so that we can always combat that. And the big problem with the managed services deal is that, the companies that are just now coming in, trying to, pave their way, they're going to come in and say, well, we can do it at this price because we know that everybody's paying this much for the tools.
Right.
And so in a sense, that's part of this discussion that I want to just bear in mind with everybody, that, we talk about the tools, we use the tools, we talk about the knowledge behind the tools, but let's not just be giving that out to the public in the forums, so that every tech we have to deal with, that's not really a tech, is now arguing with us because they've used D7 and, they're just as good as we are.
Now, let me ask this question, and I already know the answer for myself. When have you ever used an automated tool that's went 100% and done exactly what it's supposed to do with no intervention on your part?
Oh, the Windows all-in-one repair tool, man. I never go in and.
All right, let me ask you another question. When have we ever asked? Help me with the word here. Describe the people that are actually posting this. What's the word I can use? A junior. When you've ever asked junior not to be a
trunk slammers,
jerk,
Johnny Ponytail. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, but just like Marvin's saying, I mean, it's more to it. You run D7, but anybody can do that, granted, but it's who can recover after D7 breaks everything.
And that's my point.
Even though it's fixed, and then how can you put it back to make it work?
Exactly, and that's my point. And a lot of people, I think, they will always rely on certain things, and there are people that have been in the industry for a long time, and some do it for a specific reason, but there's others, and we'll get into another discussion down the road about this, but they'll nuke and pave because they feel that's the only way to solve the problem. And I will argue that it is a way. It is not the only way, but when it becomes fairly easy for people to do that, they'll go, hey, if I screw it up, it doesn't really matter. To me, if you're running a business and this is how you're making money, you don't want to spend all this time and effort into putting this stuff forward when you've already learned the tricks of the trade, so to speak, or the trade craft, like Marvin has said. You want to be able to do those in a fashion that makes sense for you and your business. And it's not as easy as just, and I love all these companies, D7, the guys over Foolish IT, the guys over Repair Tech, the Tech War Runa, they will tell you that these tools are not actually intended for Joe the plumber.
Every day is a battle between the right way and the simple way. So
correct.
We want to deliver maximum satisfaction with the absolute least amount of work.
Yes.
Period. That is
going back to, if you go back to the days when I first started back in 99, and my process was I would spend 16 hours, 12 to 16 hours on average, scanning machines and making sure that they were clean. Now, either dumb luck or just throwing so much stuff at it all at one time, I never got infected machines back, ever. Never. They were perfectly 100%. They were clean. The response I got from people was, this thing has never ran so good as in the day that I got it from you, even the day that I brought it home brand new from the store. But at the same time, what I learned over time was there's a lot of redundancy in some of the programs that I was using. And I could use less and less programs and still get the job done and get it done just as good as I used to when I used to do 12 to 16 hours.
There are 10,000 streams all leading to the ocean. I mean, if Paco and I, if we cloned 2 machines that needed fixed, Paco and I are professionals, so we're both going to get to the ocean, but we might take a different way to get there.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the way that it works.
Absolutely.
And that's why this show exists, so that we can all learn and maybe find better ways to do it. Right.
And I'm all for that. I've always said that I love to learn new things all the time. And I'll take a quote from John. The one thing I know is that I don't know everything.
And the one thing that's irritating, and you see it all the time, is when you're on some forums and there's always that junior that's out there that says that's wrong. Well, really, is there anything that's wrong? I mean, there are improper ways to do things, but those are always learning opportunities.
Right.
And what you did way back when, Jeff, it took you 16 hours. Is that wrong? It takes a hell of a lot of time, but I don't know if I would say it was wrong.
Right.
I mean, because it got you there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now you have experience, and that's why you make more money now. And that's why you just run D7 and everything's better.
No, I just run combo fix.
Combo fix, yes.
Okay.
So how did I get left out of the ocean discussion?
You're already at the ocean. We're meeting you there.
All right. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay. Oh man. Anyways, all right. So let's go ahead and move on. I think that was a great discussion, guys, and I think everybody brought very valid points and different ways of looking at it. Marvin, I like what you brought with just every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there trying to figure out and go, yeah, this is all we do. And there's a lot to it that more than that. So keep the education going. Understand what you're doing when you are running a tool. Understanding how to go in and look for these avenues of where things are at and where you can actually fix them manually if you absolutely need to. So. All right. So let's go ahead. Well,
how much time do you need?
How much time do you need? I mean,
I got an email that I want to bring up and just get your guys' opinion because I'm giving feedback to one of our listeners that emailed me, and I think I shared this with you, but I don't want to say his name, Jeff.
Well, let's move into our next section where we're going to actually take phone calls on the air and answer emails, and you can have the first email. How's that?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Oh, man,
first time ever.
Works out, man.
So anyways, we're going to move into our calling session. You can call the 1-888-697-0162 if you want to ask a question, get our feedback on something.
If you disagree with us.
We're also going to answer disagree with Paco or but what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some emails, and I've got a few, and obviously John has got one. So John, why don't you bring up the first email?
All right. I think this happens a lot because I can remember this happening to me back when I was starting. Fellow tech out there sent me an email. He does mainly really micro businesses and home users, but he did a good job at a small business. And then the business owner said, hey, I own a 70-unit apartment complex.
Holy cow.
And the guys that were helping me are gone. and now things aren't working and I need some help. So basically it's a 70-unit apartment complex. There are fiber runs to some of the different buildings. There's smart switches in all of the individual buildings. If you plug into any of these switches at most of the buildings, everything works okay. But there are 1 or 2 buildings where he plugs in his laptop and gets nothing. All right. So overall, so I sent him back. I said, well, let's start with the basics. 1, make sure, find out where you log into your router, make sure you can get into there. And we're going to get full circle on this too. Make sure that you have a static IP address on all the switches. So you're going to have to log into those smart switches and make sure there's a static IP address on those. Make sure that your DHCP scope is big enough to support all the users. If you have a 70-user apartment complex, I'm not sure what the setup is, but you're going to need at least, some IP range to feed all those users. So make sure your DHCP scope isn't just 20 users. It's going to have to be like 100, let's assume. I said, make sure your router firmware is up to date and make sure the firmware and the smart switches is up to date. And, not knowing the setup, if this is just kind of a dumb setup with switches and all that, but, make sure you go in there and poke around and do a backup in case there are VLANs and all that set up, because in case you screw it up, not knowing his knowledge, you can just put it back. Right. So he got back to me after I passed all that information on, and I'm going as fast as I can here. And his problems is he didn't set it up, obviously. He doesn't have any of the passwords, and neither does the business owner, to the router or any of the switches. The company that put it in is out of business. So, now I'm going back and I'm saying, what do I tell this individual? I mean, you're at the point where you got to reset this gear to get into it.
Say start.
Probably if he's not comfortable in doing that, he's got to find a Marvin Bee over in his area to help him, because I don't think that's something I could help him with remotely or something like that, because I think you need somebody on site that's going to be able to get to that gear and help him with that gear, and find out a little bit more what's happening on the other end as far as what the setup is. So you got to see any other option there? Or you got any other thoughts on that, Paco, Jeff?
No, I agree with you, because it goes into a conversation I had with Marvin several months ago with a law firm that I wanted to upgrade, and I couldn't get any of the information. I had some of the credentials, but being that I've never done an infrastructure update in that way or in that length, and it was about 7 users, a server, and some other third-party coordination, I went ahead and got someone that understood better, and I was behind him to end up learning. Now, granted, I took a hit half of the income that I would have made on that job, but now I have a better understanding. Plus, I didn't really do much of the work, so having half of nothing is a lot better than nothing at all. So,
not to mention you were exposed to probably some things you weren't aware of, and a learning experience, and
So I agree with you.
I do too. I think that's probably the best route. Now, the only thing you could do is you could try to track down if the company went out of business, depending on what type of company it was, home-based business, whatever. You might, a lot of times those guys will give out their cell phone numbers. You might be able to get a hold of that person. Hey, do you have any information, any passwords for the system, something you used or whatever? But yeah, if that doesn't work, you basically, you have to start from scratch. Yeah. Now, I just go in and take a pin and just reset the whole thing.
I could send you a couple of my customers. I could come down and do it for you. But I mean, I think the conversation needs to start. Obviously, we can see if we can refer somebody over to his area if we know of anybody that might know how to do that. And then the conversation has to start with the customer too, to say, hey, we're starting from ground zero. At least you don't have to buy the gear, but we got to reset everything.
Well, here's what I would suggest is, yes, find somebody in the area, but find somebody in the area that can help you do a full site survey. What I would do in that case is send over, I'm gonna plug these things for as long as I'm on this show.
You're gonna talk about ASCII again?
No, come on. Send over the Fluke.
NetScout?
Send over the NetScout One Touch and at least do a network discovery, and that will help you find out everything that's on the network: switches, routers, any network devices, anything on there before you do the reset. That way, if you find out that you've got stuff that is, static, or you've got multiple routers, you've got to get a clear idea of what you got before you do the full reset. But yes, you are going to have to do a reset, but you're going to have somebody there that can help you do a site survey. I would caution them. It's going to be pricey to do that.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little bit of time, but that's going to help you do it the right way, because then hopefully after you do the reset, you'll have all the information you need to reset up everything in basically the same way, except for passwords. That's probably the only thing you won't be able to reset back the way you had it before, unless you go out and purchase some big auditing program that will go out and sniff passwords for you. But I probably wouldn't recommend doing that. So, but yeah, try to get as much information and somebody in the area that can help, in a full network capacity with tracing out everything and seeing what you got.
Yeah, that would be good. And I think too, I mean, this is probably a Hail Mary, but maybe try the generic passwords. You never know. Did he say what type of router was there, John?
I do not know the router. I do know their Dell Smart switches, though.
Okay. Well, it's probably a little more complicated than that. So, all right. Oh, well, good luck with that. And yeah, if anybody, what area is he in, John?
Utah.
Okay. If anybody's in the Utah area, get a hold of John. His email address and website and everything is in a link in the show notes, and you can get a hold of him and see if he can pass along that information. All right. This is from Kevin Brochu, I think is the name. It says, hi, my name is Kevin Brochu from Services Informatiques. Yes, I'm from Quebec in Canada. We speak French there. I don't know if I said that right. Doesn't matter. But anyways, no, thank you, Kevin. What do you do when you can't fix an issue? Do you have a no fix, no fee policy, or do you charge your customer for the time spent regardless if the issue is fixed or not? For example, you spend an hour and a half diagnosing a problem on a laptop only to conclude the motherboard will need to be replaced. Sound familiar, Paco? Which ends up costing almost as much as a new laptop. Do you still charge for that time even though you're giving the laptop back in pretty much the same state as it was? Another example would be trying to fix a problem that happens to be out of your knowledge or skill set. You might refer another tech to the customer to fix this specific problem, but you still spent time and ended up fixing nothing. Do you charge a customer for that time anyways? I'm guessing the answers will be different depending if it's residential, customer, or a business. Anyway, keep up the good work, guys. Kevin Berchu. Thank you, Kevin. That's a loaded question. No fix, no fee. What's your guys' policy? I just rhymed.
Where's your Dr. Seuss at?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Anyways, no fix, no fee. Anyone? Anyone? What do you guys do in that situation? Paco, what do you do?
I used to be like that. But essentially what I did was I implemented a diagnostic fee because it's my time. I've told them what the issue is. They didn't know what the issue was before. So if it's too much, okay, the whole point of the whole thing is that you want to give your customer options. So yes, I do charge them for my diagnostic fee if they choose the option of not going with me for the repairs. Now, I do give them the opportunity of doing the repairs if I can find new equipment and here's how much it is. I also give them the option of doing a purchase of a refurbished or new PC if it's a little less or around the same amount of money that he would charge for the repair. That's what I would give him. Now, if he chooses no, then yes, I'm going to give him the $75, he's got to pay my $75 diagnostic fee for A, spending the time to diagnose it, B, preparing the options for him. And see, now he knows what the issue is. So, and I have my diagnostic report. So if, let's say, for example, if it's a hard drive or let's say it's RAM or whatever the case, and he doesn't want to pay my labor fee, if he goes to someone else to do it, hey, I know what this is. This is the diagnostic I got from this computer company. How much is it going to cost? If it's cheaper, hey, good for him. But he didn't have that information before he came to me.
Okay, that's good. John?
You know, I'm fixed fee, so I don't run into that very often. I I know it's a horrible answer, but it would depends. It depends on the customer that I'm working for. If it was one of my fixed fee customers, obviously it's covered, and all that. If it was a user, I do say minimum of an hour. Anybody that comes in,
Okay. All right.
So
Marvin,
I do a mix, and for most of my customers, it's either going to be included. However, if it is a problem that is outside the scope of, just regular, normal network support, there's going to be a fee of some charge. If I have to leave my office to go look at something, there's a trip charge at the very least. If it's something where I go and help them and find out that I'm going to refer it to somebody else, either because I don't want to do it or I know that I can't do it, that's probably a time where I may not charge. So it's a no charge referral. And the relationship that I have with the customer and the person I refer them to is something that I am hoping to foster for future work. So it's kind of a mix, depends on the situation. But for most things, there's going to be an extra charge if it falls out of the normal scope of stuff. Now, if it's something where I'm supposed to be monitoring, I'm supposed to be maintaining, and I'm scratching my head and can't fix it, no charge.
Okay. And I'll deal with it from more the one-offs. So if I agree with Paco as far as the residential side. If you're bringing me a computer, you're going to pay a diagnostic fee, and I will roll that diagnostic fee into the repair if you choose to go with me. But I agree with, and I used to do free diagnostics. I don't do that anymore. Same reason, because I'm spending time looking at the problem. Now, granted, if it's something, it usually doesn't take me more than 15 minutes to figure out what's going on. Hardware, software, doesn't matter. But so from that standpoint, it's worth it for me to, at least I get them in there and go, yep, no, this is what's going on. It's going to be $450 to fix it. Do you want to do that? No. Okay, great. That'll be $40 or, whatever your fee is. And I like that. Now, I will say this, and it's never happened to me yet, but the times I have gone on site to a business that's a one-off, they're not my regular business customers. I go in there and somebody needs a printer fixed. It's not printing, my receipt printer's not printing or whatever. I'll go in there and usually spend time and fix the problem. Now, the reality is, if I don't actually fix the problem for whatever reason, whether I need support from the outside because it's a specific company that gives them the software or a specific company that has the printers, I might have to walk away from that and say, hey, if I can't fix a problem, no charge, because I didn't actually fix the problem. And you're going to have to call somebody else. Now, whether I provide them with somebody else that they can get a hold of, they can take care of that or whatever, that's, neither here nor there. But that is a option. But like I said, it's never really happened to me. I usually figure the problem out, whatever it is. And it's usually something fairly simple, networking or whatever. A lot of times you reset things and kind of look at your cords and stuff like that, and hey, problem solved. Hey, this is why it's not connected or not printing. It's not connected.
You know what? And I got to go back. I think that happened to me one time and I didn't charge. When I went on site, they said they had no visual and the power cord wasn't pushed in all the way on the monitor.
Okay.
So
now if I fix that problem, now granted, if I plug in the power cord all the way, I'm charging for that.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, yeah, at that time you offer them, so I can push this in and charge you $100, or you can push it in and I'll only charge you $50 for my trip.
That's awesome. I love that. That's great. See, I just go, no, it's $100. No,
my favorite story.
Then they feel like they got a deal, and they'll oh, thanks for giving us a deal, man. You're a great guy.
That's true. And the chances are, Marvin, that's probably a perfect scenario, because the chances are that they're going to call you back when they need something down the road, maybe a little more in-depth, more extensive. There's a good chance that they'll do that.
My favorite story is I drove 3.5 hours to replace a cable that she promised she checked. So it was a network cable, so her computer wasn't connecting to the network. So I said, well, go behind your machine and find it's blue patch cable. It looks like a big phone cord. Just make sure that's plugged into your computer. Now just wrap your hand around it and just follow it all the way to the wall. Because I know it's only a 14-foot cable. Oh, yeah, everything's fine. It's plugged into the wall, too. I get down there. I walk in her office. I can see it broken underneath the credenza. I can see it. And the worst thing about it is there is a patch cable in a bag on top of the credenza.
Oh, wow.
So,
you charge them, right?
Oh, heck yeah. Travel, everything. Time, everything.
Oh, yeah. The whole shebang.
I'm just, it's still a pain to give up 6 hours of your day, a day.
Sure. Right. That's your whole shift.
Yeah, 60 seconds of plugging in, but still.
Right. Yeah.
And the funny thing is I looked at her. I mean, we didn't exchange any words while I was there. We did exchange a little, eye-to-eye focal thing, and yeah, I think we understood. She doesn't work there anymore.
Really?
I wonder why.
Let's deal with our last email for the show, and this one this is a longer email, but it should be fairly easy to answer, and I'm sure you guys are going to have some of the same answers that we've already been talking about. But this goes: love your podcast. I've been a longtime hobbyist for computer repair with a main focus on software development. That's an interesting spread. I've recently begun focusing on computer repair. Your podcasts have helped me understand running the business end of not only computer repair, but general business. I appreciate that. My topic suggestion is more geared towards on-site residential customers. And I brought this up. This was a topic, but I think we can answer this in a short amount of time. I've recently changed from a fixed rate laundry list of services at an hourly rate and have been happy with the change. I've also attracted more customers from the switch, as you would. Good. Most of my customers tend to have long conversations with me about life, and the time adds up. I generally collect payment before I leave the site, but after payment is collected, I sometimes end up staying another 45 to 60 minutes because the customer's continuing conversation on various topics. I don't want to be rude, but that's time I can't really bill them since they already paid. My question is, do you invoice residentials after you leave or at the time of services rendered? I've never had a problem collecting payment when service is rendered, but this extra conversation is adding up. Chris Ryan from C Squared Technology. Thank you for the email, Chris. What do you guys say? What do you charge after, before, during, and what do you do with long conversations?
I have a little thing where I always set a timer. If I think that I'm going to go somewhere and somebody's chatty, or I have a set time that I have the office call me just to check and see how I'm doing, so that I can turn to the customer and say, I really gotta go. So,
okay.
So as soon as I'm done here, love to stay and chat, but I gotta go.
There you go. That's perfect. I like that. Paco?
Same. I actually have.
I mean, if it's a huge problem, don't they have those apps that'll ring your phone so it looks like you're getting a call or a text?
Oh, I had one of those. That was awesome. It would actually had a script that it would basically tell you what to say, and it would call you, and you'd pick it up and say hello, and it would tell you, oh, that's really a problem. Oh, that's really a problem. So that basically you can sit there and say, at the end, it would say, I'm on my way. And he would say, I'm on my way, and hang up and be like, I got to go. I wish I could find that app again. That was the best app.
That's awesome.
I mean, you don't want to be a jerk, but that's a polite way to try to get out of there if you're uncomfortable trying to end it some other way. Or the other thing I would just do is, you don't want to be rude, to just say, hey, look at your watch and pick the next top or bottom of the hour and say, hey, I got my next appointment's at 3:00 on the other side of town. I really got to run. Thank you for your business. It's been great chatting with you. Just follow it up with a bonus at the end. Hey, it's been great chatting with you. So they don't feel awkward like they've been.
Here it is. The Gotta Go app.
Gotta Go. Okay. That's awesome.
I'll put it in the notes.
Yeah, we'll put a link in there for the show notes. So from my standpoint, I've thought about this, and I come up with the same thing, is that without using an app or anything like that, just my next appointment or my next thing that I need to do is here shortly. Now, that could be, so you don't feel disingenuous or anything like that. That could be you need to go home and play with your kids or play with your wife or whatever. But there's always something that you could be doing that doesn't require you to sit there and have a conversation for long periods of time. So I would, once the invoicing is out of the way and they pay you, which they should, especially for residential,
right?
Then you basically, you might chat for a few more minutes, but hey, I got to go. I've got another appointment or I've got another thing going on, whatever it is. And however you feel comfortable saying it, but don't feel guilty because there's always something else to do, whether it be family or otherwise. It doesn't necessarily need to be another business appointment, so that's what I would do.
I agree.
All right. Well, I think, wow, that's been a jam-packed show. And I think next week, I don't know. I've toyed with this idea of actually teasing the next show with some of the things that have come up. And I don't know if I will or not, but we may or may not talk about antivirus. You know why? Because Paco, as Paco knows, I just love stirring the pot. It's what I do. It's what I'm good at. So we're gonna. I think we might. That might be one of the subjects we deal with next week in talking about antivirus and the different things out there to look for, and not specifically point certain companies out, but just to let people know what to look for and some of our philosophy on antivirus, how to protect our customers, and what we feel is important. Because again, residential business and even business practices is going to be different for everybody. So.
Agreed.
All right. Paco, where can people find you at? You're like everywhere these days, so go ahead and just lay it out.
You can find me after November 6th right here on the Computer Repair Podcast live show. You can find me bi-weekly over at the YFNCG Network and the Computer Business Podcast with my good co-host, Matthew Rodell.
Very cool. And Mr. John Dubinsky, where can people find you at? Because obviously they're already finding you.
Well, everybody still uses Norton and McAfee, right? So our friend that needs some help is near Salt Lake City in Utah, if that helps. If anybody's around there that's got some experience with switching and networking and routing, that might be a help, poke me or Jeff, and we'll pass your information along. That would be sweet. MavenGroup.net.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And thank you, sir. And Mr. Marvin Bee, what do you got going on? You got a bunch of things going on too. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm going to be over with the Triple M threat at the Podnutz Pro podcast.
Triple M, I didn't even think about that.
And then you can still find me at mbsystems.net. And guys, I'll be gone soon.
And then we won't have any comic relief anymore.
Hey, B, I got to jump on the bandwagon. There's 3 shows, but they're still not hitting my feed. You know what's up with that? Or is it me?
I don't know.
It's not you, because I haven't even got it.
It's being worked on, so not sure exactly. I think they might need to refresh the RSS
well,
feed.
If he leaves the show, I got to be able to get my B.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I'm sure Door knows about it, and it's being worked on. So,
all right.
Anyways,
not
you guys,
just information.
I'm just on the show. It's not really my show, so.
Yeah, it's all your shows. All right. Anyways, come join us for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/Computer Repair Podcast Live. You can join in on the conversation by calling in live or hanging out in the chat room. We have audio available over at podnutz.com or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. Send your questions and feedback to podnutz@podnutz.com. You want to leave a voicemail at 1-888-697-0162. And please consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/Computer Repair Podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast.